My name is Ra Twilly and I will be your moderator today. Today's session is titled The Digital Twins Working Group, a Systems Perspective. Speakers for the session are Aidan Mercer, Marketing Director at buildingSMART International, Bart Brink, Senior Program Manager at TKI Bow and Technique, and Mark Enzer, Strategic Advisor at Morton MacDonald. This session is scheduled to last 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end. This session is being recorded and will be made available for the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to the speakers, I would like to remind you that this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of this session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel. Also, for online attendees, this is largely an interactive session, but you're welcome to join anyway. For the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum, and if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and use a microphone. I would also like to bring to your attention that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted, and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favor any particular provider and are open, non-binding, and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. And now I'll hand over to Bart.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome at the second day of the event and this workshop. It will be interactive later on digital twins. Following our publication yesterday of our next paper about the systems perspective. Is it possible to have also the slides on the screen below here? That saves my neck a little bit. My name is indeed Bart Brink. I'm here as leader of the Digital Twin Working Group, or chair of the Digital Twin Working Group. And we're going to do two things in this session. One is that I will first reiterate a little bit what we've shared yesterday, so that we all are at the same page and same information level to go through the second part, which is indeed a discussion amongst each other. You have to work on this session. It's a workshop, as said, to really collectively dive a little bit deeper in the topic. So a little bit context for you. This was already told yesterday, but it's good to know a little bit where we come from. This Digital Twin Working Group is one of the strategic working groups at buildingSMART International and was formed a couple of years ago already. And since then, what we have been doing is working together in our team, but also reaching out to the community at various ways to work on this topic of an ecosystem of digital twins. And through this journey of the last 4 years, we have kind of built up this framework you already have seen yesterday. Initially, we really started to position the topic of an ecosystem of digital twins, with especially attention for the word ecosystem. It was a highly successful paper. It was downloaded 40,000 times plus, so I think it was really an important milestone also for buildingSMART to say, hey, we are here, we are relevant for this development coming at us. And the focus of that paper was quite on the relevancy of open standards, data sharing, interoperability if it comes to digital twins. We extended that with the 7 perspectives later on. We said, okay, it's really important that we look at those topics, but in line with our panel yesterday, there are other topics we need to take care of as well. And last but not least, yesterday we said, okay, it's important that we not just look at the built environment itself, but also look at the built environment as a host of a lot of other systems that are connected in itself as well. And what would that mean, and how can systems thinking help us in that regard? I, of course, assume you read all these papers in preparation for this session, but in case not, I have a slide summary of the essence of each of them. I think in the first paper, the essence was really about, okay, let's say what is a definition, or what is the purpose of digital twins in the first place. And I think the 2 purposes that were identified then with the visuals shown on the left here was really, there's one reason, can digital twins help us how the built environment works? And secondly, can it help us to make better decisions about the future of the built environment? And of course, to do so, you need to have data. You need to have data not in various formats, static data, dynamic data. You might need models, you might need AI. All kinds of forms are possible. But I think the important purpose was, it was already, the goal was, how can it help us to make better decisions for better outcomes? Secondly, I think the statement made there was, don't look just at the build cycle, which is for a lot of part of our sector still the dominant focus, but let's look across the life cycle. And in the Mentimeter yesterday, that was iterated. The purpose of digital twins for life cycle management was mentioned by 60–70%. And in that role around the life cycle, you can use it various ways. It can help you to better communicate and validate your design. It can help you to simulate and predict certain measures you want to take before you actually implement them. But it also can help you to better understand what's happening and understand the systems. Later on, more on that topic. And last but not least, and that is, I think, where we moved into that ecosystem or connected digital twin thinking. There is not such a thing as the digital twin of the built environment. But we acknowledge that there are multiple digital twins at multiple levels, at multiple skills, depending on the context you're in and the business question you want to answer. And it's important that we not just think about the individual digital twin, but see them as a system that collaborate and need to be connected. And data should flow through those systems. And that also, and I think that was the main item of this paper, buildingSMART International with open standards and interoperability at its core, has a key role to play in their journey, and has a key role in enabling their journey as well. Because without open standards, it's impossible to collaborate sufficiently in the value chain, but also amongst the systems. So that was the first paper. I think it was really a good step. It identified some topics to go forward, but we also acknowledge that it was still focused a lot about data, open data interoperability, which makes sense in the context of buildingSMART, of course. In Rome, we extended this a little bit and say, okay, it's important. It's a nice statement, but we know it nowhere near there yet. So various things has to happen, and the realism of today is that we have data quality issues, that we don't use always open standards yet, especially a couple of years ago. We are on that transition and movement, one of the conclusions yesterday of the panel. And of course, it's wonderful to have a future vision, to say, oh, everything is a connected digital twin world where every information is seamlessly flowing through, and the data or information you need for your business decisions is there at your disposal, depending on what your role is. You have what you need to be successful. And I think the main point in this diagram, although it's quite simple, is that we need to be, we are on a journey, and we need to think about what needs to happen in between 1 to 2. And that was the focus of the discussion in Rome. And I think that helped us to work to this 7 perspectives framework, which we presented in Lillestrøm, where we said it's not just about data and technology. Yes, they are the enabler of a lot of these things. And yes, we need to work on that, and that might be the core role BSI have to play, but there are more topics to it. And again, yesterday in the panel, one of the topics discussed was the capability part, digital mindset, importance of leadership, but as well you saw the importance of governance. If you look about mandates coming out in countries or proactive roles of governments that they take a role in making data sharing, better data sharing in their sector possible, aligns with that as well. We try to link it also a little bit better to the purpose, the society side. So these 7 perspectives gave a kind of conceptual framework to say, okay, if we go on this journey, let's make sure we pay equal attention to each perspective. And if we do so, we also might need to better collaborate with other parts of the industry or other industries, because, as said, some parts in here are the core of BSI, but other parts might be much more at government level or European Commission level or other levels. Last point I want to point out on this schema, which gives, I think, a nice framework, which you can adapt for your own business purposes, of course, is that we don't limit themselves too much to digital twins only. Digital twins are an important development in this area, but all these technologies are as well connected or exchange or depending on each other. And so like data, like AI is depending on data, like machine learning. We need to have the IoT sensoring data to be able to get to digital twins. visualization or augmenting the environment. The metaverse might be coming in at a certain point. So I think hopefully this helped, and it helped us at least to broaden that horizon and say, okay, if we go to these connected digital twins, let's make sure beyond what we do here, what needs to happen more. But we still found out, and it aligns quite nice with this 2 Mentimeters we did in March in Rome and Lillestrøm. Yes, where you saw the perspective of the data sharing connectivity was quoted highest. But you also said that it was much more diverse. There were much more challenges where we need to work on. Some more technology-driven, some more skills-driven, some more governance or procurement-driven. But it gives a nice blended overview, and therefore we thought the 7 perspectives could help taking this forward. Now, the last step we took was the paper published yesterday, and we said, okay, this is nice, but we still have from that level 2 in that initial diagram, we miss a kind of overarching topic of systems thinking, because the built environment is not an isolated system, and one of the challenges we face is those silos. So you might have read it by now, but I took a couple of quotes from that paper to tell a little bit what is the story in there before I go to the systems themselves. And one is that, but I think this is at the core of a lot of presentations these days, is the challenge is there. It's not only about new buildings, also about retrofitting what we have. And data and information and digital twins are essential in that. And all those elements, that are interventions in the system design way of working, way of thinking. We need to think beyond what's happening in a project. We need to make sure that the projects happen in a context and that we understand the context sufficiently. Are we going to replace the bridge because the bridge is end of life? Or do we replace the bridge because the city is growing and the growing needs lead to other transportation needs, and other transportation needs require a different bridge? And how do we combine those two? Too often we still siloed approaching the end of the lifetime bridge question from an asset management perspective or a maintenance perspective, and not from a systems perspective. So we need to look even beyond the projects. I think that is the second statement we wanted to make. Thirdly, there are 2 progressions over time, which really enable this need for system thinking, which also gives an opportunity. One is, of course, the advancement in data and digital technology, the amount of data available, qualitative data, the adoption of open standards, IFC 4.3 and the likes, which really shows that we are maturing in the industry. And I think that maturing in parallel to the need and the understanding of how systems tend to work really make this a kind of right moment in time to take this next step. And of course, that's all, as the first paper already said, we reiterated it here again. Yes, you need OpenBIM to do so, because a system is not within the boundaries of one organization or one project. It goes beyond, it goes in the value chain where multiple stakeholders are involved, whether it's the execution part of it or the asset owner part of it. But also, if you go to the other dimension, a bridge is part of the traffic system in the city, which are other systems that you need to connect to. Like the energy of a building is part of a energy system, as well as it's the energy of the building is part of the user system who uses the building. And there, as said, it's not just about digital twins then anymore. It's about combining multiple technologies in the right manner to take it forward. And of course, we did, as kind of a promising statement, I think if we are able to gradually keep working on this, raise the awareness, take this one step forward, we can really take the industry to a next level to get towards better outcomes. And I think this was the way it was visualized. So previous was text, this is visualization. The built environment is a complex system of systems, and the built environment is also a host of a lot of other systems, like the healthcare system, the education system, all kind of business systems. So we need to be aware of that, and if we do interventions in that built environment for better outcomes, so we do interventions in the systems, we need to be much more aware of it. So look beyond the project aligns with that. And the system thinking is exactly about that, huh? How you connect outcome systems and intervention in the right manner. And yes, that is relevant for digital twins as well. It's not just making a virtual replica of an individual object and then close the feedback loop, because that's an important part of making improvements. But it's especially the zeros and ones on the schema that makes a connected digital twin or make the system relevant development. And so I hope that the story tells a little bit what we have tried to bring across in those papers. And in summary, we should start thinking about connected digital twins. That is more, you should have a system perspective, system design thinking perspective to look at it sufficient holistically. Take into account you have multiple perspectives. It's not just a technical question, but it's also an organizational, business, legal, governance question. buildingSMART has a key role to play in that, and I think this hopes, and that's also our purpose as a working group, sharing this vision, this roadmap ahead, also might inspire and give context about how we can work together on enable this ecosystem of digital twins. Now, and I think this is the result of the Menti yesterday, and I think that reflected quite well. And I think based on the feedback, I think it was acknowledged that this system thinking is a topic that is relevant for the community, is important to better understand and start discussing about and identify how can it help us further. And secondly, it was of course the word cloud, where we quite liked two words in here. I think it's the collaboration and interoperability, which are kind of the same, sitting nicely next to each other. And hopefully that you agree with me that if you move into that system level with the interdependencies, is not just about the ability to share data, the interoperability part, but also to collaborate on the dilemmas and challenges you see. Mark, any additions to this? Getting the story across? Okay, thank you. I listened carefully yesterday to his presentation and do it match his quality. Okay. Are there any questions on what I've shared before I go into a little bit interaction more here? I assume or I lost you or everything is clear. I can hear you, but someone is coming at you. Yeah.
On the perspectives, if you can jump back to them, I believe there was no environmental perspective. You had environment within society. Can you comment on that?
Always wonderful slides that have been built up. Yeah.
It's a societal. You had.
It's in keywords in climate change, but not as a separate one. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you comment on that? Why an environmental perspective is not necessary?
I don't want to say it's not necessary. You could debate, is societal covering also the environmental aspect, and is that word covering sufficiently that as well? Our intent is that it should. So in the keywords it is on purpose, climate change and environmental impact, because partly of our challenge we face, the burning planet of yesterday, are words related to that. So I think it's a valid comment. It was, by the way, made in Lillestrøm as well, I recall. So maybe always good to take feedback seriously. It might be that the societal doesn't reflect sufficiently the environmental goal in it. Yeah.
Because if I can add to it, I mean, maybe this is out of scope of digital twins, but just sort of from a holistic perspective. So societal challenges are critical in terms of inequality and health and income and things like this. So I think that deserves its own point, but I would then put environmental as a separate category. That would be my view on it, but perhaps from the digital twin perspective, it's not necessary, but that would be my input. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
One more here. Thank you. I guess my question is around how do we help drive this? So if I'm a water utility company or a transport authority or a consultant or a contractor, what role, what can we do? Because you know, if I'm a transport authority, for example, or water utility, let's say we're applying digital twins and we've kind of digitized everything there. How do we get the other players to come and play with us so that we're all going to the system of system and we're digitizing kind of like a national digital twin? Like what can we do to help drive this? And full disclaimer, I haven't read the report yet, the latest one.
I don't know if Mark has a comment on that, because you've had a lot of experience in this area.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And what I'm kind of hoping is that you might come up with some answers around that in the workshop bit, actually, because what Bart will do in just a moment is reveal some of the questions which we think would be really good to dig into. But for me, one of the most important questions is how this community, which is kind of based around interoperability and the whole idea of Open BIM, can contribute in this future more connected, more integrated world. I'm utterly convinced myself that this community has a massive part to play. But I think that for me, it's communities like this that can help to get to a place like what you're pointing to. So I'm going to be really interested to hear the outcome of the conversations around the tables. I think that will be part of the answer.
Thank you. Other questions for now? Otherwise, I suggest we move to the... Yes? For the people online following this, I think we go into an interactive session in the room itself. So you might listen in, but it might be not able to follow anything at all. So in all honesty, we try to focus the discussion from now on in the room. So having said that, I would like to go to what are we think we would be a good thing to do with you. Now, I think it's nice that we work in a small group, but it's as important as, and we present that paper and is on the stage, but it's as important as that the discussion takes place amongst yourselves as well. Because the diversity of people in this room is, I think, one of the opportunities, except on top of what Mark just said, to get it really to a next level. So what we're going to do in a minute, and it's always an experiment, how does it will work out? We are with around 24 people, I think, here. So we might move into 4 tables. So I want to, in a moment, I will show a little bit what we're going to do and the questions up front. But I want you to sit together at a table with maximum of 6 people. And try to mix a little bit, because one of the opportunities I want to give you is to talk to people you don't have been talking to yet too much about this topic. So let's take a couple of tables, 4 tables, and max, I would say, sit there. And that would be helpful because we try to facilitate it, but we have more groups than facilitators, that you appoint someone in your group who can a little bit lead the discussion, a little bit time management, make sure that all the questions are being addressed. And also, and there's also a little bit self-organizing, I ask to you, appoint someone or ask someone who is willing to feedback what you discussed. So at the end of the session, we will have sufficient time to feedback what others have been discussing. And we want to give you a couple of questions. You don't have to go them one by one. If you don't make all 6, it's fine, but I think having questions steers the discussion a little bit. I will leave this on the screen, by the way, so you can look at it. But I think it's important, in our view, of course, good to know who is there, but why are you here? And I think it's important to share what are you doing with the topic of digital twins and why it's relevant for you. I think we have a view on the system thinking, and that's why we wrote a paper, but where do you see it? Is it that word cloud? Is there a word missing, or is there a thing you want to express more? What is a kind of common sense at your table about that question? It's also about, and it relates to the second question a minute ago, where do you see BSI comes in? What can they do to bring it from this conceptual framework into practical action? And what are key success factors of doing so? And also, and how should we, what is your feedback to us to take this forward? Would it be publishing more of these papers? Are these papers helpful at all? That's a little bit question 6. Should we go into more tangible examples? But it's now answering the question which I prefer to give to you. So really, what should we do next? Maybe good to say, as a group, we have kind of a free format that we work from, conference to conference, and then as we go, being adaptive to what comes out of it from ourselves, but more especially from sessions like these. So also that way you can steer us a little bit in the right direction, that what we do makes sense for you. Okay? Any questions on this format? Excellent. Then I would like to ask you to redistribute yourself a little bit amongst the tables so that we end up with around 4 tables. Make them a little bit not next to each other so you have a little bit better room to debate.
This could be a table here.
And I will take time. Time management is with me, so I will let you know how long you will have. Yes, we're gonna round up the discussions, please. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Seen from a distance, there was energy coming out of the tables, so I think that's a good thing. And I acknowledge that we give you not the questions asking is easy, get it to an answer is another thing, especially on these new concepts like systems. But I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Format-wise, what I would like to do, we have around 20 minutes left, a little bit less, is that we are going to go by the tables in a minute, that one of you give feedback to the other groups about the essence of your discussion. And I would like to ask you to answer kind of two main questions. One is a little bit a summary of question 2, 3, and 4. So what is the main insight you got from your discussions about systems thinking and digital twins? And secondly, what would be your main recommendation to the working group going forward? And I think that is, if you can focus on those two, I think that's, and keep it quite brief, a couple of minutes per table is sufficient. And then I invite my colleague in crime, in this case, Mark, to also reflect a bit on what is said. Okay? Clear for everybody? Then I just take a random order starting here. The mic is on, if it's okay. Who is willing to enlighten us with your insights?
Okay, so in this group we discussed about, it was a very good discussion, and we'll provide for the second question, what could be the added value for to you of system thinking. It's the dimensions of digital twins, which is the main important dimension is the life cycle. It's the life cycle of the built environments. So thinking systems is addressing for us the life cycle, and it's important and it's the most important added value of this system thinking is addressing the life cycle of a product, a system, a digital twin, whatever. So that's the answer. It's okay. The third, what role could SI play in taking this forward? I think we discussed and we introduced the BSDD, because BSDD can provide a facet of emerging dictionary for the digital twins, even the digital twin addressed a system, a component, a product, or whatever. The idea is to talk with the same terms, with the same properties. That's important. And define this BSDD in domain, and several domain. And that can be the layers you talk about the built environments. In the fourth questions, for us, I think all the group is to just simply given a better definition of digital twin, because at the end we talk about systems, we talk about the life cycle, but we don't know really what is a digital twin. That is the working group, and thinking systems can provide a good approach to have a good definition of digital twin. That's it. That's the outputs of our group.
Thanks a lot for your feedback. Good to get some feedback on language, the last point, linking it to what's already been done on the BSDD, and acknowledging the importance of system thinking from a lifecycle perspective, if I summarize correctly. Do you want the feedback now, Mark, or do we it after the whole? Oh, okay. May I give one of you the floor?
Okay, thank you. We just the first question. We just want to know where we are China railways companies, and we want to know the concept of the digital twin and the BIM, and what's the difference between these two concepts. And I want to know more about is there any digital twin standards is also published? And the second one, what could be added values? I think we want to add the delivery part in the system thinking, because now we have been in railway construction phase, but the metadata and the information structures is different in the construction phase and the operation and the maintenance phase. So we think how to deliver the data and the BIM is critical questions to provide the metadata informations to construction phase, to the operation phase. The third questions we concern about the metadata deliveries data we suggest and provide more industry case for us to study. The fourth questions, we want to make sure the metadata and the dictionary information, dictionary and the information structures can meet the requirements of the whole life cycle. The fifth, we want to know more about the case applications, because in this meeting we learn more about the concepts. We want to know how to applications in this area. And the sixth, the output of the group, I think the system thinking is critical for us, and we need more perspective to concern, like delivery, this part. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it quite nicely on a couple of topics built on to the previous group. Well, although I didn't notice you at exchange, so that's on a good sign. I like the idea, and I think that is one of the things we came up ourselves often. Make it practical, bring it to applications, because that gives you also better insights about what are the tangible challenges to overcome. Yeah, and I like your metadata point, because I think that is one other thing that comes with these kind of things, but maybe Mark can reflect on that in a minute. Who can I invite?
Thank you. So we have someone who is actually practicing the digital twins, but at the IFC level. So it showed how you have a central IFC model, and then you have MVDs, the model view definition, creating digital twins at that level. Then these digital twins from the MVDs send data to a central IFC model and influence the other MVDs. So says the system approach is really important when we want to consider something like that. Yeah, and what BSI can do is standardization for interactions between these systems. I think that's all we talked about.
Any additions from others? Any additions from others in the group?
I don't know. We were also talking about the technology and what is really needed. For example, when we speak about AI, which is very trendy, but sometimes it really depends on which data we are talking about. Then we come from different disciplines. We have the urban planning. Then when we speak about systems, and you had also a picture in your slides where we aim to the interaction between different digital twins, but already managing one digital twin, it's kind of complex. We discussed about the need of the use of the 3D model and at all, or when it's needed, when it's not, because by definition you have to have the 3D model, but maybe it's really not always needed, or it's an information per se, and we can process data and have other kind of information. Yeah, so when I just made the joke about removing something for your cloud, I would remove AI. I think that it's time to be more specific, because when we talk between experts, then I think that AI is very much And yeah, I think that if we speak about machine learning or whatever, but we need to start talking more in detail. What do we mean with AI? Yeah, I think that.
And can I just ask, did you have any advice for the working group? Is there something that you would like the working group to focus on?
No, we really didn't get so far. We got stuck on this. I think that we need to have multidisciplinary discussion. Of course, we need expertise from different. But this is my opinion. We haven't discussed. So, sorry.
Thank you. I think it quite aligns with the word cloud and the two words in the middle. Interoperability was part of answer A, and B was collaboration. And I take note of the buzzwording, because I think it's indeed important to answer the question in what way then. And I liked personally yesterday the question at the panel about AI, how can it help this? And then you have to become more precise than just saying, yeah, it solves all our problems, because it won't. Who may I invite here as a last but not least table?
I'll start and then hand it on. So we had just quite a diverse group, which sort of took a bit to get into, so with a sort of interest and focus on robotics, on facility management, infrastructure and waterworks, and Emma's, I'm going to say science, interest in information sciences, and mine in education. So I think with the discussion, it took quite some time to sort of come to a sort of a common understanding. Discussions around systems thinking, we're looking at sort of interconnectedness, collaboration, and the importance of this holistic view. I think we're all got the same opinion there. When we tried to look at reflections and potential advice for the work group, I'm just going to list out a couple of things that were raised here to consider interfaces within the systems or systems of systems to allow parties to dock in and connect. So interfaces was an important term. The importance of information science principles, specifically ontologies, knowledge graphs, and data dictionaries to allow us to better share and connect. And another topic is what could be the role of BSI to look at sort of the implementation. So what are guiding principles is something that came up. How can we take this forward? So these are sort of three. But
and I think from my point of view, the question I have about the role buildingSMART has to play is, where do they feature? And if we had a general ontology that underpinned everything, and also in terms of the domain model schemas that we've got quite a lot of in this industry, can buildingSMART play a role of actually bringing them together as being that foundational data model that it is, so we can actually start to connect all the different data schemas, then we can connect into ontologies to give us standardized terms and semantics. So that whole strategy really needs looking at, not only from a science point of view, but from actually what we have in industry and how we join all that together.
Any famous last words? No. Okay, thank you for adding that. I like the word interfaces, which is a different systems interface with each other. So I like the good addition to what has been said on other tables, and application guidelines, which are quite nice, aligns with the need for concrete cases and see how it works. So that maybe can go hand in hand. And but that's not now over to Mark about it's not just about interoperability, but also knowledge graph ontologies, and semantics, link data, etc., what comes with it. When work needs to be done. Mark, any final reflections?
Yeah, thank you.
Next 5 minutes.
It's just to reflect on some of the reflections, and it does feel like some really good conversations around the table. So there's a lot to like in what you said, and I feel that what each table has come up with is kind of additive. You build on what each other have said, which is really good. Firstly. And I guess what that means is that what I'm going to run through is a whole bunch of things which I agree with. For the first table, I think what you're saying around addressing the life cycle is really important indeed, because it is so easy for us to kind of concentrate on kind of multidisciplinary, bringing people together, but just in one part of the life cycle. So I think you're exactly right to point to the whole life cycle. And I think that just that message is a really good one to get out, is that we actually care kind of end to end. The thing I would add to that is that I think we need to look beyond just a project life cycle, because a project comes to an end. It's almost the definition of a project. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once you finish the project, then you're kind of delivering a new asset into the system. And so it would be really good, I think, to extend that exact same thinking that you talked about beyond the life cycle of a project into the life cycle of an asset, and beyond the life cycle of an asset to everything that is connected to that asset, because the asset is part of a system. So I love the thinking. I would just encourage us to take the same thinking even further. And I buy what you're saying about the better definition. I think we always need better definition. The thing I would add to that is that I think sometimes we can get ourselves down a little bit of a kind of a cul-de-sac when what we really need is better description rather than definition. And I've been working in the digital twin space for quite a while now, and I've seen at least 6 years worth of arguments about a definition of a digital twin. And every single definition that I've seen people come up with of a digital twin is lacking in some way or other. It's never quite got it right. And so I think that something which is even more important is being able to describe a digital twin well. So instead of trying to get it down to a perfect sentence which covers everything, it's like, let's have a more inclusive view, how we can describe the different aspects and components of digital twins, because I think that's more inclusive, and digital twins come in many different shapes and sizes. But lots to like from what you said. I think that on table 2, the whole thing of a kind of a call for more standards is absolutely right. My view on that is that the standards should come from practice rather than from theory. What I observe is that there are a lot of people rushing to write standards before they've learnt. And really what we should do is learn by doing, and then what we've learnt becomes the standard. Because otherwise there's a danger of just writing a standard down based on theory, and then it's stuck. We're stuck with something which isn't right. So I think we've got to be kind of a bit agile around this. Learn from doing, get the practice, and then turn that into standards. Something that I wanted to say, just to build on what you were talking about, is in this whole picture of the importance of purpose. I think that's super important for digital twins, but it's super important for so much of what we do around data. It's like the value of data relates to its purpose. The value of digital twins relates to their purpose. And so I think it's one of those things which, as a community, we need to get kind of more into that word of purpose. And then this table and the whole thing around the value of where we're going and the systems approach, the role of IFC5 in that. In my opinion, and again, this is just an observation, is that it feels like IFC5 is going to become a global standard. This is going to be transformational. And I think that what this community has done to champion Open BIM feels like it's just a beginning. It can't stop with just Open BIM. It needs to kind of get into the open digital twins and kind of open modeling of systems, or whatever we want to call it. Maybe we need to work out, what do you call it going forwards? But this community has championed something which is clearly of massive value, and are genuine leaders in this area. So I think we should be asking ourselves, what next? What kind of open something is beyond Open BIM? And so, I loved what this table was saying. And then finally, the table in the corner, and I'm going to be quick now because I'm rattling on. The advice that you're giving the working group, I think, is really good. And we're going to be taking notes and going away and trying to do some of this advice. So yes, on the interfaces, you're absolutely right. That needs to be addressed. I think taking information science really seriously and getting to those ontologies, realizing that actually at the root of it, the thing that joins everything together are ontologies, because ontology is all about what exists and how things that exist relate to each other. That is so much to do with systems thinking, it's untrue. And the other thing that you said in there, which I really buy into, is that we kind of need to have implementation, and it's one of the areas where this community can help us, is in real case studies. And from those case studies, we can develop guiding principles. Again, there was so much to like in what that table said. So the final thing that I wanted to say, which for me wraps it up, is what the next step feels like, because it seems like we've got enough concepts out there now. We've got 3 papers full of concepts. What we've got to do now is get some use cases, get some practice, turn the theory into something real. And what I said about learning by doing. And so what we're really keen to do is identify some use cases and then turn them into case studies that we can then present to the community. That feels like it's going to make it more practical and more accessible to everybody. So thank you for your contributions. They're really good. And I think they will be genuinely directing where we go next. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. And then I'm the only one standing between you and your lunch, so I will step out of the way. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your active participation and giving us and yourself and your peers valuable insights this morning. Thank you.